There's a powerful truth that too many of us overlook when life buries us under disappointment, betrayal, or failure. Being buried doesn't mean you're broken. The problem is most people can't tell the difference between being buried and being planted. Both situations look the same from the outside. Dark soil, pressure all around, isolation and silence. But one is meant to end your story and the other is meant to begin it. When you've been buried, people expect you to stay down. When you've been planted, something inside you is about to grow. See, when people walk away from you, when they count you out, when the phone stops ringing and the support dries up, it feels like death. It feels like the end. But sometimes the burial is a part of God's process. You thought you were being pushed down, but you were really being positioned. You thought it was rejection, but it was redirection. God hid you in the dirt, not to destroy you, but to develop you. When a seed is planted, it has to go through the dark before it ever reaches the light. It has to be broken open before it can bring forth fruit. The outer shell has to crack for the life inside to emerge. Maybe that's why you've been feeling broken, because something inside you is trying to come out. What's happening to you is not punishment, it's preparation. You're not breaking down, you're breaking open. You see, when something breaks in God's hands, it multiplies. The bread had to be broken before it could feed the multitude. The alabaster box had to be broken before the fragrance could fill the room. Jesus himself had to be broken on the cross before resurrection power could be revealed. So don't despise the breaking. It's the sign that blessing is on the way. People may have left you for dead, but what they didn't understand is that broken things are the very things God loves to use. He specializes in using what others throw away. He takes the broken pieces and builds something beautiful out of them. He takes the fragments of your life and says, watch me make this whole again. The world says you're finished, but heaven says you're just getting started. There's something about being in that buried place that humbles you, refines you, and makes you reach for God in a deeper way. It strips away everything superficial, your pride, your titles, your comfort. It teaches you to depend on the one who sees you even when nobody else does. The soil that surrounds you is not your enemy. It's your environment for growth. Every ounce of pressure is pushing the roots deeper. Every bit of darkness is forcing your faith higher. And let me tell you, the enemy doesn't attack what's dead. He only buries what still has potential. The fact that you're under pressure means there's still power in you. The fact that you've been covered means there's something valuable inside you. The enemy is trying to hide you before you bloom, but he made one mistake. He buried a seed, and a seed always rises. You may feel forgotten, but God never buries something he doesn't plan to resurrect. There's a reason he allowed the dirt to come over you. There's a reason he let certain people walk away. He knew that if they stayed, they would limit your growth. He knew that the soil of solitude was the only place where your roots could strengthen. God is doing more in the dark than you could ever imagine in the light. So don't you dare confuse your burial with your breaking point. You are not broken beyond repair. You are planted for purpose. There's a resurrection coming, and when you rise, you won't look like what you've been through. The dirt that covered you will become the foundation that supports you. Very ground that tried to suffocate you will nourish what's about to grow from you. Hold on, because this season of being buried is temporary. Seeds don't stay underground forever. The time is coming when what God placed inside you will push through the dirt and reach toward the sun. You may not see the progress yet, but the process is working. Even when you can't see it, life is stirring beneath the surface. So lift your head, even in the dark. Wipe your tears, even in the soil. You might have been left for dead, but you were never forgotten. You were planted, not buried. You were hidden, not abandoned. And soon the same people who walked away from your grave will have to witness your growth. Because being buried doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're about to bloom. There's something sacred about silence. Something powerful that happens when the noise stops and the crowd disappears. But the truth is, most of us don't like silence. We want answers, explanations, movement. We want to see what God is doing. And when we can't, we assume he's not doing anything. But the reality is this: the setup is often found in the silence. God does his greatest work in the moments when you can't hear him, can't trace him, can't feel him. When life goes quiet, it feels like abandonment. You pray, but the heavens don't answer. You cry, but nobody seems to hear. You try to move forward, but every door slams shut, and you start to wonder, did God forget about me? You start to question, why isn't anything happening? But what you don't realize is that silence is not the absence of activity. It's the presence of strategy. God is setting something up behind the scenes that you're not supposed to see yet. Think about it. Before a baby takes its first breath, there are 9 months of silence in the womb. Before a butterfly spreads its wings, there's a season of silence in the cocoon. Before a seed breaks the surface, there's silence in the soil. And before Jesus rose from the grave, there was silence in the tomb. Every resurrection, every transformation, every breakthrough is preceded by a period where it seems like nothing is happening, but everything is. That's where God does his best work, in the dark, quiet places where no one else is looking. The silence is not punishment, it's protection. God hides you in that quiet place so he can prepare you away from public opinion. Because if he exposed what he's doing too soon, people would try to interrupt it, limit it, or steal it. So he keeps you silent while he builds you strong. You might be frustrated right now because you can't see what's coming next. You're asking, why isn't God moving? But he is moving, just not in the way you expect. See, when God is silent, he's not still. He's shifting things. He's aligning people. He's opening doors that you don't even know exist yet. Silence is not the space where God does nothing. It's the space where God does everything that matters. When Joseph was thrown into the pit by his brothers and sold into slavery, the Bible doesn't record a single word from God during that time. When he was imprisoned for something he didn't do, it was silent. But years later, Joseph looked back and said, "You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good." That's what happens in the silence, the setup. What looks like rejection is really redirection. What feels like loss is really leverage. God uses the quiet to position you for what's coming. Don't mistake divine silence for divine absence. God is closer in the quiet than you think. He's not ignoring you. He's incubating something in you. The silence forces you to listen differently, to depend more deeply, to trust beyond what you can see. Because if God explained everything, faith wouldn't be necessary. The silence builds your sensitivity to his voice, your patience for his timing, and your endurance for your calling. There are some blessings that can only grow in the soil of silence. When God takes you off the stage and puts you in a season of stillness, he's not demoting you. He's developing you. He's teaching you how to hear his whisper in the chaos. He's strengthening your roots before he shows your fruit. He's preparing you to handle what he's about to hand you. You see, Sometimes the setup doesn't look like promotion. It looks like isolation. But isolation is not the end. It's the incubator. Before David ever wore a crown, he learned to worship in the fields. Before Moses ever faced Pharaoh, he spent years in the wilderness. Before Jesus ever called disciples, he spent 40 days in the desert. The silence was their training ground. The solitude was their setup. And maybe that's where you are right now, in a season that feels quiet, still, and slow. But don't give up. Don't assume God has walked away. He's setting you up for something you can't see yet. You're not being ignored. You're being instructed. You're not being forgotten. You're being formed. When God finally speaks after the silence, it will make sense why he was quiet for so long. The delay will reveal its purpose. The stillness will show its strength. The doors that open will be the ones you're finally ready to walk through. So don't despise the silence. Embrace it, because in the silence, the setup is happening. You may not hear anything right now, but that doesn't mean God isn't speaking. It means he's speaking through circumstances, through timing, through preparation. Trust that the quiet is not a void, it's a voice. The setup in the silence is God getting you ready for your next season. And when he finally brings you out, everyone will see what the silence was working on all along. There comes a moment in every life when people walk away, when the ones you thought would always stand by you suddenly step aside, when the voices that once cheered for you fall silent, and the crowd that once surrounded you disappears. It hurts because you thought they saw something in you worth staying for. You thought they understood your heart, your struggle, your journey, but they didn't. They left, and you were left wondering why. But what if their leaving wasn't your loss? What if their absence was actually making room for God's presence? Because when people leave, God arrives. Sometimes God allows people to walk away so he can walk in. He lets certain relationships fade, certain connections break, certain doors close, not to punish you, but to prepare you. The truth is, some people can't go where God is taking you. They were meant to walk with you to a certain point, but not into your purpose. If they stayed, they would limit what God wanted to do through you. So he removes their presence to make room for his power. It's easy to think that abandonment means you did something wrong, but often it's a sign that you're stepping into something right. When you're about to grow, God starts pruning. When you're about to rise, God starts removing. He clears your circle because he's about to enlarge your territory. The loneliness you feel isn't evidence that God left you. It's proof that he's drawing closer. Look at Scripture. When Abraham followed God's call, he had to leave his family and his homeland. When Joseph was betrayed by his brothers, he was thrown into a pit, left for dead. When Jesus was arrested, even his disciples scattered. But in every one of those moments, when people walked away, God's presence stepped in stronger. Abraham found direction. Joseph found destiny. Jesus fulfilled purpose. God showed up in the gap left behind by human departure. You see, we often cling to people because we think they're our source. We depend on them for validation, support, and strength. But sometimes God has to remove those supports so that you'll lean entirely on him. He'll take away the crutches so you can walk by faith. He'll let people turn their backs so you'll turn your face toward him. Because as long as you depend on others, you won't fully depend on him. And let me tell you, when God arrives, he brings everything you need. He brings peace to replace your pain. He brings provision to replace your loss. He brings purpose to replace your confusion. The people who left couldn't carry what he's about to give you. Their leaving made space for your blessing. You might have cried when they walked away, but one day you'll thank God they did. Because if they had stayed, you might never have discovered how strong you really are, how deeply you can trust, or how faithful God can be. When people leave, it's not rejection, it's redirection. God is shifting your focus from who left to who remains. He's teaching you that your value is not determined by who stays with you, but by who created you. Some of the greatest moves of God start with separation. It's in the empty spaces of our lives that He fills us the most. When your heart feels vacant, when your table feels empty, when your phone stops ringing, that's when God steps into the room and whispers, now that it's just us. I can finally speak of the pain of people leaving is real, but it's also revealing. It shows you who was attached to your purpose and who was only attached to your comfort. Some people loved what you gave them, not who you were. Some stayed for the spotlight but couldn't handle the shadows. When the light dims, the true ones remain. And when everyone else walks away, that's when God proves He was there all along. So if you're in a season where you've been abandoned, overlooked, or forgotten, lift your head. You are not alone. You are not forsaken. You are in transition. God is replacing human presence with divine partnership. He's exchanging temporary support for eternal strength. The ones who left were never meant to stay, but the one who stays will never leave. When people walk out, God walks in. When they give up, He steps up. When they stop believing in you, He reminds you of what He placed inside you. Their exit was the entrance cue for His glory. You thought their leaving was your downfall, but it was actually your breakthrough. Because when people leave, God arrives, and when God arrives, everything changes. So let them go. Release the ones who walked away with grace. Bless them and move forward. Because every departure is a divine announcement. God is here now. And when He shows up, He brings healing for your heart, strength for your soul, and purpose for your pain. You may have lost people, but you haven't lost presence. You may have been left behind, but you've been lifted up. When people leave, God arrives, and He always arrives on time. Rejection hurts. There's no gentle way to describe it. It cuts deep. It bruises your heart, and it makes you question your worth. But what if rejection isn't what it seems? What if the very thing that wounded you was actually preparing you? What if the doors that closed were never meant to open? What if the no you heard was actually a setup for something greater? Because here's the truth. Resurrection requires rejection. Every person God ever raised up had to face being turned away first. You cannot rise without something pushing you down. You cannot be lifted until you've been let go. It's the tension of rejection that builds the power for resurrection. Look at Jesus. Before the glory of Easter morning, there was the agony of Good Friday. Before the stone was rolled away, there were nails, thorns, and betrayal. He was rejected by the very people He came to save. They didn't understand Him. They mocked Him. They walked away from Him. But what they didn't know was that their rejection was part of His redirection. The cross looked like defeat, but it was actually the setup for the greatest comeback in history. If Jesus had never been rejected, He would never have been crucified. And if He had never been crucified, He would never have been resurrected. The pain that broke Him was the process that birthed redemption. That's why you can't let rejection define you, because in God's hands, rejection becomes resurrection fuel. Some of the greatest blessings in your life are hidden inside the moments that hurt you most. That job that didn't call you back, that relationship that fell apart, that friend who stopped answering your messages. You thought it was the end, But God was using it to lift you to a new beginning. He knew that if those people or opportunities stayed in your life, they would anchor you to a level you've already outgrown. So he allowed them to reject you, not to crush you, but to catapult you. You see, rejection is often God's way of saying, you've got more in you than this. He lets the wrong people walk away so that the right ones can find you. He shuts certain doors because he knows that behind them can't hold the weight of what he's placed inside you. Every time you face rejection, you have two choices. You can let it break your heart, or you can let it build your faith. You can see it as loss, or you can see it as leverage. Think about Joseph. His own brothers rejected him, threw him into a pit, and sold him injection. Felt cruel and unfair. But years later, when he stood as second in command in Egypt, he looked those same brothers in the eye and said, you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. That's what resurrection looks like. When what tried to bury you becomes the foundation that elevates you. You have to stop seeing rejection as a reflection of your value. It's not that you weren't good enough. It's that you were too purpose-filled to stay where you were. Rejection doesn't disqualify you. It reveals that you're chosen. The stone that the builders rejected became the cornerstone. The very thing others overlooked became the centerpiece of what God was building. Maybe that's your story too. Maybe you've been the stone that people rejected, but you're about to be the cornerstone of something greater. Rejection strips away false security. It teaches you to stand alone, to trust deeper, to depend more fully on God. It refines your character and strengthens your spirit. It's not a sign that you're failing. It's evidence that you're being prepared. You can't resurrect what hasn't been buried. You can't rise without falling first. So don't resist the process. Embrace it. Every disappointment, every denial, every betrayal is part of the divine design to bring you closer to destiny. The reason rejection hurts so much is because we think it's final. But in God's plan, rejection is never final. It's formative. It shapes you, molds you, and positions you for the next chapter. God will let certain people close their doors because he's about to open one that no man can shut. You just have to trust that his yes is greater than every no you've ever heard. So lift your head, wipe your tears. Don't let bitterness take root where breakthrough is about to bloom. What walked away wasn't meant to stay. What turned you down wasn't meant to lift you up. What rejected you was making room for what's about to resurrect in you. Every rejection is a signal resurrection is near. You may have been denied, dismissed, and disappointed, but you're still destined. God doesn't waste rejection. He transforms it. He takes the moments that broke you and uses them to bring you back stronger. The hands that pushed you down only positioned you for the power that's about to raise you up. Because resurrection always requires rejection, and your rising is on the other side of your no. There's something powerful about surviving what was meant to destroy you. There's something sacred about standing when everything around you tried to make you fall. Life will throw storms, betrayal, heartbreak, and loss at you. But if you're still here, that means purpose is still alive in you. You are still standing, still chosen, still called, still covered. You may not look like what you've been through, but that's the beauty of grace. You survived things that should have broken you, and yet you're still standing. Sometimes we think survival is weakness, but survival is strength. Survival is proof that what the enemy sent to end you wasn't strong enough to stop what God started in you. Every time you get back up, you testify that your calling is greater than your crisis. You didn't survive because you were lucky. You survived because you were chosen. God put something inside you that can't die, something that refuses to quit. There's a reason the storm didn't take you out. There's a reason the betrayal didn't end you. There's a reason the sickness didn't consume you, because God wasn't finished with you. The pain you went through wasn't punishment, it was preparation. You've been refined in the fire, and now you're stronger, wiser, and more grounded than ever. You might have scars, but scars who don't signify defeat, they signify survival. Every scar is a story that says, I made it. Being chosen doesn't mean life will be easy. It means you'll face challenges that others can't handle because you carry an assignment others don't have. That's why your journey has been so heavy. That's why the warfare has been so intense. That's why some people walked away, why doors closed, why things didn't go according to plan. Because the chosen have to be tested. You can't lead others out of darkness until you've learned how to find light in your own. Still standing means you didn't quit in the middle of the fight. It means you kept showing up when everything told you to give up. It means you cried but kept moving. You fell but kept believing. You broke but didn't bow. You got weary but didn't walk away. That's the power of being chosen. You may bend, but you don't break. You may stumble, but you don't stay down. There's something inside you that keeps whispering, jet back up. That's the voice of purpose calling you forward. Look at the heroes of faith. Every one of them had to stand through something. Moses had to stand before Pharaoh. David had to stand before Goliath. Esther had to stand before the king. Daniel had to stand in the lion's den. They were not the strongest. They were not the most qualified, but they were chosen. And when you're chosen, God gives you the strength to stand in situations that would crush someone else. When you are chosen, your enemies can't destroy you. They can only develop you. The betrayal builds endurance. The heartbreak deepens compassion. The loss teaches gratitude. The opposition reveals your authority. Every obstacle becomes an opportunity for God to show himself strong in your life. That's why you can't afford to give up, because your survival isn't just about you. Somebody else's breakthrough is tied to your perseverance. You're still standing because there's more for you to do. There are people waiting to be inspired by your story, to be healed by your honesty, to be lifted by your faith. You're still standing because your presence on this earth still carries purpose. Don't let what happened make you bitter. Let it make you better. Don't let pain silence your praise. Let it strengthen your worship. You didn't survive to stay silent. You survived to shine. The fact that you're still standing means the assignment isn't over. God didn't bring you this far just to leave you in the middle. You've been through the valley, but the valley isn't your home. You're coming out stronger, wiser, and more resilient. You're stepping into a season where everything that tried to bury you will become the very soil that helps you grow. You are living proof that grace works. You are evidence that favor still finds the faithful. You might have walked through fire, but you don't smell like smoke. You might have cried in the dark, but joy is coming in the morning. You might have been counted out, but God counted you in. Still standing means you made it through what others didn't think you could survive. And not only are you standing, but you're standing taller. So lift your head, wipe your tears, square your shoulders. You've come too far to doubt now. You are not here by accident. You are here by assignment. Every breath you take is proof that God's hand is still on you. You are still standing, still chosen, still covered, and still called. The battle may have been long, but victory is written in your story. And when the dust settles, your testimony will echo through generations. I was left for dead, but by the grace of God, I'm still standing. You said now, after everything that's been said, after the burying, the silence, the rejection, and the rising, there's one truth that echoes through it. All you were left for dead, but death couldn't hold you. What was supposed to destroy you only discovered what God had already placed inside you. Every season of pain, every tear, every lonely night was not the end of your story. It was the setup for your resurrection. Sometimes life will strip you down to nothing just so you can learn that God is still everything. The dirt that covered you became the place where your roots took hold. The silence that scared you became the classroom where faith found its voice. The people who left made room for the presence that never leaves. And the rejection that wounded you became the wind that lifted you higher. You are not here by accident. You're not breathing by coincidence. You are here because purpose refused to let you die. You are here because destiny demanded your survival. God looked at you broken, bleeding, buried, and said, live. And when he speaks life, no grave can keep you. So the next time you feel abandoned, the next time you feel forgotten, remember this: you've been here before. You've been down before. You've been left behind before. And yet, you rose. You got up. You pressed forward. You kept believing when belief didn't make sense. That's what survivors do. That's what the chosen do. That's what you do. This isn't just a comeback story. It's a God story. A story of how he can take what others left for dead and breathe it back to life. A story of how he turns graves into gardens, pain into purpose, and endings into new beginnings. You are living proof that what the enemy meant for evil, God can use for good. So as you walk out of here today, walk with your head high. Walk like someone who's been through the fire and came out shining. Walk like someone who's been buried but bloomed. Walk like someone who knows that if God be for you, no rejection, no silence, no grave can stand against you. You were left for dead, but now you're standing in resurrection. You are the evidence that God still raises what the world tries to bury. You are the testimony that life wins, that hope endures, that grace still works. So this is not your ending. This is your awakening. You're still here, still breathing, still chosen, still standing, left for dead but alive for destiny.